The sky above France trembled with a deep rolling growl. At first, the Allied pilots thought it was thunder then. They saw it, a blur of gray-green steel streaking across the formation, faster than anything they'd ever faced. It was 1941, and Germany had unleashed a new weapon, a fighter so fast, so deadly, that it instantly changed the balance of the air war. Its name was the Focke-Wulf 9C. The Allies called it the Butcher Bird, #1 birth of a predator. When engineer Kurt Tank began designing the FW-190 in the late 1930s, he had one goal: to build a fighter that could outclimb, outturn, and outfight anything in the sky. The Luftwaffe already had the elegant Messerschmitt Bf-19, but Tank believed the next generation of air combat demanded something tougher. The 109 was nimble but fragile, its liquid-cooled engine easily damaged. Tank's answer was brutal simplicity, a short, wide-winged fighter powered by a massive air-cooled radial engine, the BMW 801, a 14-cylinder beast producing more than 1,700 horsepower. The result was a compact, muscular machine that could hit 440 miles per hour and still carry enough armor and firepower to shred bombers to pieces. When the prototype first took flight in 1939, Luftwaffe test pilots were stunned. They called it the Dream Fighter. Number 2. First blood over France. The Allies first encountered the FW-190 in August 1941, when RAF Spitfires clashed with a new, unknown German aircraft near the Channel coast. British pilots radioed back in panic. Their beloved Spitfire MKV was being outclimbed, outturned, and outgunned. The 190 could roll twice as fast as the Spitfire. It accelerated like a rocket and could dive without shaking itself apart. Within weeks, it had wrested air superiority from the RAF, a position the Allies had held since the Battle of Britain. One British commander called it the most formidable single-seat fighter in the world. Number 3. Engineering the monster. At the heart of the FW-190's power was that BMW 801 engine, a monster built for brutal efficiency. It used an advanced cooling fan and automatic mixture control, reducing the pilot's workload in combat. Unlike the liquid-cooled Merlin engines in Allied fighters, the 801 could take damage and keep running. Bullets might tear through its cylinders, but the radial layout allowed it to limp home when others would seize. It was built low and wide, giving the pilot incredible visibility and agility in a dogfight ton. And its armament, devastating: 2 13mm milligram 100 fine machine guns and 100 tonnate machine guns in the nose and deep 4 Z-1000mm cannons in the wings. A single burst could obliterate an enemy fighter or slice through a bomber formation like paper. This wasn't just a plane, it was a flying buzz saw. Number 4. The Allied Shock. By early 942, the FW-190 dominated Western Europe. Allied intelligence was desperate to learn its secrets. When one crash landed in Wales that June, British engineers swarmed it. What they found terrified them: a fighter that was faster than any Spitfire then in service. In response, Supermarine rushed to build the Spitfire MKX fitted with the new 2-stage supercharged Merlin 61. It was a stopgap, but it finally restored parity. Still, for nearly a year, the 190 had ruled the skies, a 440 miles per hour monster that cracked open the confidence of the Royal Air Force. Number 5. Eastern Front Fury. While the West struggled, the East was burning. Over the endless steppes, Luftwaffe squadrons of FW-190s battled Soviet Yak-9s and Ensigns in debt, Is-Teams in debt. Dogfights that stretched for hundreds of miles. The rugged radial engine thrived in the harsh Russian winters where liquid-cooled fighters froze. German ace Walter Nowotny scored dozens of kills flying the 190, describing it as an extension of the pilot's body. But the war was changing. Soviet numbers grew, and Allied bombers began striking deep into the Reach. The FW-190 had to evolve again. Number 6. The Bomber Killer. In 1943, Allied bombing raids over Germany intensified. To defend the homeland, Focke-Wulf engineers developed new variants: the FW-190A-8 and the FW-190A-9, fitted with extra armor, heavier guns, and even underwing rockets. The 190s tore through American bomber formations, ripping B-17s and B-24s apart with their 20mm and some T-mm cannons. Some carried the Sternbach configuration, thick armor plating, and short-range firepower designed for head-on attacks. They paid for every kill. Bomber gunners and escort fighters fought back fiercely, but the FW-19D earned its legend as the bomber destroyer of the Reich. Number 7, David vs. Goliath. Nintes W, Nintes Dada. As the war dragged on, Germany's fortunes fell, but Kurt Tank wasn't finished. He stripped the FW-190 down, stretched the fuselage, and replaced its radial with a liquid-cooled Jumo 2013 V1 TUV engine. The result was the FW-190-9, nicknamed Dora. 9 sleeker, faster, and capable of matching the new American P-Fine Foals and Mustang at high altitude. It could reach nearly 430 miles per hour and climb like lightning. German pilots loved it, but by 1945, it was too late. Fuel shortages, lack of experienced pilots, and overwhelming Allied numbers meant the Dora could only delay the inevitable. Still, in the hands of experts like Gerhard Barkhorn and Heinz Baer, it remained one of the deadliest machines of the war's final days. Number 8, against the jets. In the twilight of the Third Reich, even as the jet-powered Me-262 took to the skies, many Luftwaffe veterans still preferred their FW-190s. The jets were faster but fragile and few. The 190 could take off from rough fields, fight low to the ground, and survive punishment that would tear lesser planes apart. It was, in many ways, the last reliable warhorse Germany had. Number 9, Allied admiration and capture. After the war, captured FW-190s were tested by American, British, and Soviet pilots. Every one of them came away impressed. The U.S. Army Air Forces called it a masterpiece of practical engineering. Its design philosophy, simplicity, strength, and raw power would influence post-war aircraft on both sides of the Iron Curtain. Even decades later, aviation historians still regard it as one of the best piston engine fighters ever built. Number 10, the forgotten rivalry. The Spitfire may have won the headlines, the Mustang, the glory, but the FW-190 won the respect of every pilot who fought it. When it burst onto the scene in 1941, it completely rewrote the rules of air combat. Allied intelligence had no warning, and when Spitfire squadrons first encountered it, the shock was immediate and devastating. The Butcher Bird, as it came to be known, was faster in level flight, more agile in a roll, and far deadlier in a dive than anything the Allies could field. For months, the Royal Air Force struggled to understand how the Luftwaffe had suddenly leapt so far ahead. The FW-190's dominance forced a reckoning. The Spitfire MKV, once the pride of Britain's skis, was suddenly obsolete. Engineers and pilots worked frantically to close the gap, leading to the birth of the Spitfire MKIX, a direct response to the German innovation. Across the Atlantic, American designers paid close attention, refining aircraft like the P-47 Thunderbolt and P-51 Mustang to meet the challenge. The FW-190 had done more than defeat aircraft. It had shattered complacency. It showed that air superiority was never permanent. It had to be fought for every day, in every mission, through constant evolution. For a brief, terrifying moment in the early 1940s, the sky belonged to the Butcher Bird. Its distinctive growl, powered by the BMW 801 engine, became the soundtrack of fear for countless Allied pilots. And yet that same fear inspired them to fly harder, fight smarter, and innovate faster. The FW-190 may not have won the war, but it changed the way it was fought. Its legacy endures not in numbers or victories, but in the respect of those who faced it and survived. Today, a handful of FW-190s still fly, lovingly restored, their BMW engines thundering like echoes of the past. When those engines come alive, the B air trembles, and the years seem to fold in on themselves. The sharp mechanical growl of that radial engine is not just a sound, it's a memory. It carries with it the weight of history, the voices of the men who once flew and fought in skies filled with fire. When you see one take off, you can almost feel what Allied pilots felt 80 years ago. That rush of awe and fear as a 440-meter-PH monster streaked past, leaving only smoke and silence behind. In its day, the Focke-Wulf 190 was more than an aircraft, it was a shockwave. Allied flyers who first faced it in combat called it the Butcher Bird, a fitting name for a fighter that seemed unstoppable when it first appeared. Against the Spitfires, the Thunderbolts, and the Mustangs, the FW-190 was a predator, fast, agile, and brutally powerful. But beyond the numbers, the horsepower, the climb rate, the firepower, the FW-190 represented something deeper. It was the embodiment of German engineering at its peak, a declaration of defiance written in aluminum and steel. To its pilots, it was both a weapon and a companion, a machine that could mean the difference between life and death. For the Luftwaffe aces who mastered it, the FW-190 was an extension of their own will, fierce, unrelenting, and elegant in its precision. Yet today, as one of these surviving fighters arcs across a clear sky, the violence is gone. What remains is reverence for the machine, for its history, and for the men on both sides who lived and died beneath its shadow. Watching a restored FW-190 take flight is like watching a ghost rise, not a specter of destruction, but of remembrance. Each gleaming rivet, each streak of exhaust tells the story of an era when the world itself was on fire and the sky was the ultimate battleground. The FW-190 was not just a machine. It was a statement that speed, strength, and ingenuity could change the course of war, even if only for a moment. It symbolized human brilliance and human tragedy in equal measure, the power to create something beautiful and to use it for destruction. Now, decades later, those remaining aircraft serve a different purpose. They remind us of what war demanded, of the courage it took to climb into the cockpit knowing what awaited beyond the clouds. The FW-190 no longer hunts or kills. It simply flies as a bridge between generations, a mechanical heartbeat from a world that must never be forgotten. The FW-190, a predator born of necessity, built for dominance, and remembered for fear. This was the fighter that cracked the skies over Europe, the 440 miles per hour monster that changed the war.